Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Newcastle United shocked the world last year with their amazing campaign and breathtaking football. They gave Newcastle fans a reason to believe and a reason to hope once more. And now a new season is on the horizon. But the question is, what's next for them? Today we are diving into that very question. Please make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you are new, you like the video, and you hit that notification bell. And now, let's discuss what's next for Newcastle United. Newcastle have wasted no time in getting players through the door in preparation for their start next season, and they've brought in this man, Sandro Tonali, literally the homegrown superstar from AC Milan. He captained his club that he supported since he was a boy, and this is a massive, massive transfer for Newcastle. But I think they need more. Let's take a look. Here we have the Newcastle United side. Now, I've gone for a 4-3-3 in this instant. It's a flat 4-3-3 with Tonali, Bruno and Joelinton. Joe Willock could come in for Joelinton if you really want him to, but I want to focus on this flat 4-3-3. This is the way I think Newcastle are going to set up and the way I think they could really start to get the most out of the players that they've got. It gets Tonali and Bruno into the side and they all move together as one. I think this is something that Newcastle were able to do really well last season. They all moved together and then they went back to the defensive positions together as well. It's something that Atletico Madrid have been able to do for such a long period of time. The entire team moves back, the entire team moves forwards, and it enables you to stay both attackingly orientated but also make sure that you're defensively sound. But we're not talking about the midfield in this instance. Instead, we're talking about how we think Newcastle could improve and what could be next for them. Well, first of all, you can see that I've got three positions highlighted. I've got the right winger, I've got the left winger, and I've also got a centre-back. Generally, I do think that Newcastle could do with a couple more players. Jamal Lewis, what's going on with him at left back? Is Dan Burn really the option? I'm not so sure. Kieran Trippier, we do need some backup for Kieran Trippier here. I wonder whether he's going to be able to play the same amount of minutes that Newcastle expect of him, especially with the Champions League coming up, so that's another big question mark. However, the major problems I have are the left winger in Isak. I've got Isak into the side because I think he's very good at driving with the ball. However, this is by no means his position, and I don't think this is where he needs to be. Callum Wilson had a decent end to the campaign last year, but I do think he will start to be phased out more often than not as the years go by. Isak will then become that main central striker. In doing that, they're going to need a left winger. I'm not sure that Anthony Gordon is going to be the major player so far. He's only 22 years old and he's still very, very raw. Although he's come off the back of a Euro Under-21 championship win, I still think he's very, very inconsistent, and he doesn't have the consistency, I don't think, to be able to really pin a starting position for this Newcastle United side. And then we have a look at Almiron out on this right-hand side. While I do think that Almiron had an absolutely brilliant beginning to his campaign, he fell off towards the last stages of the season, and that's going to be a big question mark that Eddie Howe is going to have. So Maximan, you believe, is going to be going out the door, which means that they're going to need some support. At least a left winger, but I'd opt for a right winger as well at the same time. Well, now we know the likes of Harvey Barnes are being linked, and generally I think that's a very good signing. But I think a right winger, or at least someone that can play both positions. Perhaps you can move Gordon over to this right hand side, play Harvey Barnes here, and then have Isak here. It's a big question for Eddie Howe to answer, but I would generally go for those positions. And then you have the centre-back pairing. Schär and Botman were absolutely fantastic, don't get me wrong, they were brilliant. However, when we talk about Schär and Botman, it only takes one injury. And then you've got the likes of Lascelles, and past Lascelles, you don't really have anyone. So the big question for Eddie Howe is going to be able to find a centre-back that has the playing capabilities of Schär, has the defensive awareness of Botman, and is able to play with both of them. This is a very crucial position, and I'd argue the most crucial position that Newcastle need to look at. When we talk about Newcastle, I think we're all talking about free-flowing attacking football and really allowing them to express themselves. And people don't tend to want to talk about centre-backs because it seemed as a little bit boring. It seems a little dull. However, I think this is extremely important, and I think they get a new young centre-back in, not necessarily to replace Schär, but to be able to play as a backup and then come into the squad when he's ready. I think it's going to be absolutely pivotal. So these are the three positions that I think Newcastle need to desperately look at before the start of the season. Transfer signings aside, there is another thing that Eddie Howe and Newcastle fans in particular need to take into consideration when looking ahead towards next season. I'm not going to be liked for this one. Yes, if anything was going to halt Newcastle for a certain period of time, it would be this: the burden and the weight of expectation. You see, as football fans, we're continuously asking our clubs to strive for excellence, or at least when excellence isn't achievable, we ask them to strive for better. You survive relegation by the skin of your teeth. You need to be above 15th place next season and not be in the same position. You get to the quarterfinals of a cup, you need to be in the semi-finals the year later. You get 4th. And then, I'm not for 1 second assuming that Newcastle cannot make top 4, or they will not be able to repeat the same successes that they did last season. However, they might not, and it's the reaction to that that really is starting to concern me. You see, we live in a very reactionary age. Everything needs to be either brilliant or terrible. There is nothing in between. You can't just have a good season. Everything needs to be either you're the best in the world or you're the worst. And if they do not meet the same expectations that the fans have or that the owners have, I fear that there might be some reactionary problems that follow. Eddie Howe is currently the tactical mastermind that has turned Joe Linton into one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. But following a disappointing season with Newcastle, if it were to ever happen, and he could turn into a manager that hasn't won anything, and the expectations were just too high for him. And it's the time in between that change in perception and change in reality that concerns me. It is undeniable what Newcastle did last season. It was brilliant, it was spectacular, and it was unexpected. And that's the point. Now there is expectation. And that brings me back to the question that I posed at the start of the video. What next for Newcastle? The answer isn't so simple. Whereas other teams could say that they need top 4, or they need the title, or they need some kind of trophy, Newcastle are ahead in their process, and they are definitely way ahead of schedule. So if for whatever reason they don't make top 4, or they struggle in some of the cups, just a steady progression forwards, gaining their momentum up towards the top of the table, should be something that Newcastle fans are looking towards. So what next for Newcastle? Enjoy the football, enjoy the moment, enjoy the journey. Newcastle United are here to stay. Let me know in the comment section below what you think is next for Newcastle United. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, and turn on those notifications. Thank you ever so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.